When Karl Marx wrote about alienation, he did not describe a distant philosophical idea. He described what we live today with uncomfortable precision. Alienation is not an abstract condition. It is a fracture, a cut between you and the world, between you and others, between you and your own voice. It is the slow erosion of belonging. It is waking up in a life that feels borrowed. Zygmunt Bauman would later say that modern life turned this fracture into a lifestyle. Nothing stable, nothing solid, nothing to hold on to without fearing it will slip through your fingers. We became liquid people in a liquid world. And in this liquid world, we drift. We once lived as if nature was the house and we were only a room inside it. Now we behave like landlords, treating the world as a resource instead of a relationship. The forests burn, the oceans choke. The climate responds with the precision of a wounded animal. And still, we act surprised. Our distance from nature is not just ecological, it is emotional, it is spiritual. When we silence the forests, we silence a part of ourselves that used to know how to listen. And when nature stops speaking to us, we forget how to speak to ourselves. Science already shows the cost. Higher stress levels, higher inflammation, more anxiety, more fear. Because when the environment collapses, the body collapses with it. We live surrounded by people yet feel alone in the middle of the crowd. Less contact, less trust, more screens, more filters, more relationships that break at the first sign of weight. Bauman called this liquid love. Relationships without commitment, connections without depth. Ties designed not to last because permanence scares a culture drunk on speed. But here is the part we try to ignore. Human beings are not built for isolation. Our nervous system expects closeness the same way lungs expect air. When bonds weaken, we fall apart from within. Anxiety rises. Depression creeps in. Addictions grow. Illness follows. Humans break when their connections break. Most people wake up to jobs they do not believe in, tasks that do not reflect their identity, roles that require obedience rather than imagination, days spent producing something that has nothing to do with who they are. Humans are creative beings, not creative in the artistic sense, but creative in the existential sense. We are built to shape reality, not simply endure it. So when our work is empty, we become empty. When our work lacks meaning, we lose direction. And when meaning disappears, substitutes rush in. Consumption, performance, status, comparison, endless distractions sold as life upgrades. An entire economic model thrives on people who feel existentially starved. Marketing does not sell products. It sells temporary relief from the feeling of not being enough. This is where everything sharpens. Ask yourself, how many times did you feel a strong instinct, ignored it, and regretted it? Probably many. And how many times did you ignore a strong instinct and feel grateful later? Almost never. This tells us something heavy. At some point in your childhood, you learn to abandon yourself. No baby enters the world disconnected. Infants feel everything clearly. They know when something is right or wrong. They reach for safety. They reject danger. Instinct is their native language. So what happened? The world told them to mute their inner voice. Parents, overwhelmed by their own pain, could not always mirror what the child felt. School rewarded conformity over authenticity. Society encouraged performance over truth. Gradually, the child learned that aligning with others was safer than listening to themselves. The result? Adults who mistrust their own instincts. Adults who mistake self-abandonment for maturity. Adults who can no longer tell which desires are real and which are borrowed from culture. This is not a luxury problem. When instinct disappears, reality becomes blurry. Truth becomes negotiable. We lose our compass. We navigate life blind. Neuroscience is clear. The brain is designed for connection. Isolation, disconnection, and emotional suppression activate the same alarm circuitry as physical danger. Psychology shows that suppressing instinct leads to chronic stress, internal conflict, and identity confusion. The immune system reacts. Hormones shift. Behavior warps. Even rats, as Dr. Maté notes, show empathy. When they watch another rat receiving shocks, their stress levels rise more than the rat being shocked. Connection is not a human invention. It is a biological law. Our culture does not break that law. It only teaches us to ignore it. We like to believe we are naturally competitive, selfish, driven by survival instincts that pit us against one another. But this is cultural storytelling, not biology. Humans survived through cooperation, through shared care, through empathy, through recognizing each other's needs long before we could articulate our own. We are wired for compassion. We are wired for bonding. We are wired for love. Aggression is the exception. Connection is the rule. When you combine all forms of alienation, you get a society full of people who feel out of place in nature, out of sync with others, out of meaning in their work, out of touch with themselves. This creates a psychological vacuum, and a vacuum never stays empty. It fills with anxiety, exhaustion, addictions, compulsions, obsession with appearance, fear of judgment, overthinking, spiritual numbness. We live surrounded by noise because silence would expose the truth. We forgot who we are. Here is the turning point. You do not need to become someone new. You need to return to the person you were before the world trained you to shrink. You need to reclaim your instinct, rebuild your inner authority, reconnect with the nature you came from, relearn how to sense what is real, relearn how to trust your body, relearn how to listen to yourself without waiting for permission. This is not a simple path, but it is available. It is human. It is ancient. It is yours. You were born connected. You were born intuitive. You were born whole. Everything culture took from you can be taken back. The real act of rebellion today is not noise. It is clarity. It is honesty. It is presence. It is refusing to abandon yourself one more time. A society built on alienation collapses when people reconnect. Because connected people think clearly. They sense truth. They recognize manipulation. They stop buying what emptiness tries to sell. Rediscovering the true self is not self-help. It is resistance. It is reconstruction. It is liberation from a culture that profits when you feel lost. Nothing is more powerful, more dangerous, or more transformative than a person who has returned home to themselves. A person who feels their instincts again. A person who knows when something is wrong. A person who can no longer be convinced to abandon their own truth. This is not a journey forward. It is a journey inward. A recovery of what was always yours. A return to the clarity you were born with. Yourself is not missing. It is waiting. Right where you left it. If the world has ever made you feel misplaced, disconnected, or strangely distant from your own voice, remember this: you are not broken. You are reacting to a culture that teaches people to hide their instincts, silence their truth, and live half of their lives on the outside. But the fact that you are here, listening, reflecting, letting these ideas touch you, is proof that something inside you is still awake, still searching, still wanting to return to who you were before the world told you who to be. And if this message resonates with you, know this too: you are not alone. This community exists for people who sense that something is missing and who want to explore deeper truths together. People who are tired of merely surviving. People who want to remember. Being here already matters more than you think. Watching, commenting, sharing, reflecting. These actions keep this space alive. They help this message reach others who are quietly fighting the same battles. But if you feel called to take one step further, becoming a channel member brings you into an inner circle where the conversation continues with more depth, more nuance, more honesty. Members help shape the content. They get early insights, exclusive posts, and a sense of belonging that mirrors the very connection we talk about here. And if you want to support in a single act of generosity, the Super Thanks feature is a simple way to say, "This mattered to me. Keep going." It helps sustain the channel, the research, the editing, and the dedication behind every video. It is a way of giving back to a message that gave something to you. But hear this clearly. Even if you never become a member, even if you never use Super Thanks, your presence already helps more than you know. Just by watching, by staying until the end, by sharing this with someone who needs it, you are supporting the channel in a real, meaningful way. Still, if this content has inspired you, challenged you, or helped you reconnect with a part of yourself, I invite you, gently but wholeheartedly, to consider joining as a member or sending a Super Thanks. Not out of obligation, but out of resonance, out of that quiet feeling of, this is worth supporting. Whatever you choose, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring enough to question the world and to look within. You are part of this, and that already means everything.